It's three things. Do what's thoughtful and caring. Put the guests first. You see it, you own it.
So what does it really take for your business to attract world-class talent today? I'm Dave Travers, president of ZipRecruiter. And on Talent All-Stars, we shine a light on the people and the day-to-day processes behind recruitment and retention at some of the world's most influential businesses. Our guest today has amazing experience, and she has some incredible stories to tell. Joy Rothschild is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Omni Hotels Resorts, which operates more than 50 properties across North America, with a team of 20,000 people, all while ensuring each hotel maintains its own unique character and sense of place. So in this conversation, we dive into Joy's unexpected journey into HR, the mechanisms Omni uses to promote overlooked talent that others might miss, and how their mantra, the power of one, has led to some truly heroic acts of hospitality, which you'll hear all about. So let's bring her in. Joy Rothschild, welcome to Talent All-Stars.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So excited to have you. Okay, where did it begin? I want to go back, maybe not all the way to the beginning, but I want to think about you know, long before you were a CHRO and leading teams and teams of teams. When did this people thing and HR start to feel like, hey, this could be my thing? This could be more than just my current 9 to 5. Like I could see a career here.
Okay. So I was in a management training program. At the time, it was Dunphy Hotels. And I was in a 2,200 room hotel in New York City across the street from Madison Square Garden. It was a complete dump. It was the Hotel Pennsylvania, and I think they imploded it 2 years ago, but it was 2,200 rooms, 1,800 employees, union hotel, and I'm in an operations training program, and I had never been in hospitality, and when guests were aggressive with me, I was aggressive back, which was not a good thing to be. So when I got into what was personnel at the time, I just loved the employees, and you would do small things for them and they were so appreciative. And then I would see people I hired get promoted, and I got a lot of fulfillment out of that. And I actually called the corporate office of Dunphy and said, I'm not finishing my training. I'm in personnel and I want to stay here. And they said, that's not allowed. And the general manager and the director of HR at the hotel said, no, she does not belong in the front. She belongs with the employees. And that's truly when I chose my path. And at Omni, I've had many opportunities to go to operations, go to sales, go to marketing. I've never wanted to leave HR. I love it.
And as you rose through the ranks, one of the things I've heard you talk about before is that you sometimes got promoted and got opportunity before you had the perfect background, the perfect resume, et cetera. Talk about that and talk about how that experience as the rising star now informs your leadership and HR strategy.
Thank you. So there's a couple of stories around that. One is I was in New York at this giant hotel for 3 years, and a job came open at the Omni Parker House in Boston, which is a 170-year-old hotel. We just renovated it, by the way. It's spectacular. But the HR director job was open there, and I applied for it. And the chief HR officer of Omni called me at the time, and she said, you are not getting that job. She said, you don't have the experience. She said, I'll let you go on the interview just so you can see what the general manager is like and what the rest of the team is like. In other words, saying, you're going to go see how you just don't fit. And I went on the interview, and at the end of the day, the general manager said to me, you are not ready for this job. You are way too green. He said, but I like your energy and I like your enthusiasm, and I'm going to give you a shot. And I didn't realize at that time would be a theme in my career, but I did that job for 3 years. I loved the Omni Parker House. It had so many characters and so much history. And during my tenure there, the same CHRO, she said, we'd like to bring you up to the corporate office for the summer. It was in New Hampshire, and work on some new training programs and a new empowerment program called the Power of One, which you'll hear me talk about, and just spend the summer and do this. And during that summer, she left the company. And one night I was going home and the COO called me into his office and he had the organizational chart on his desk. And he said, Joy, how would you like your name in the top HR box? And I said, oh, no, I'm not ready for that. No, no, no. And he said, I know you're not, but I like your energy and your work ethic and your passion. And I just started gushing. I was like, Simon, I will not let you down. I will work so hard. And he said, Joy, stop. He said, a man would never do what you're doing. He said, shake my hand, say thank you, and get out of my office. And I tell that story all the time to people because I did have a good work ethic and I did reach across the aisle and try to learn things I didn't know and stay up on trends. And, in retrospect, I deserved a shot, but I never thought I did. And so the last kind of piece of that was I became the VP of HR at Omni and then the SVP of HR. And then the company was for sale. And every major brand was looking at us. And also this oil and gas company in Corpus Christi, Texas. And we wanted them to buy us because we said, what do they know about hotels? They'll need us. So to cut to the chase, TRT bought us. That's who still owns us. And the day of the closing, they fired every single one of us, including me. And I went home that night, and one of the people that got fired, who was an older executive, he called me and he said, Joy, you're going to fall in love with a company again, but you're never going to marry a company again. And I said, I don't even know what that means. And he said, are you married? Do you have any hobbies? He said, like, all you do is work, and that's not sustainable. And I went to Carnival. I got a job at Carnival. I led HR there for 2 years, and I loved it. And then I got the phone call you always dream of if you ever got fired, which is, we made a mistake. Would you ever talk to us again? But I was 7 months pregnant. I was married. I was a different person. I had more boundaries around me. But the one thing that never left me was that people gave me chances before I was ready, and I grew into the roles. And that philosophy, we call it growing the garden. And that is our philosophy here in terms of talent, is how do we find what we call the people in the corners and put our arms around them and see if we can move them to the next, level. And sure, we've got tons of superstar desk clerks and salespeople. Those people are obviously easy to promote. It's the quieter people or the people that don't have as much confidence. And we really go out of our way to find those people and nurture them.
It obviously feels incredible. Like, I felt incredible just hearing when somebody was looking in your eye and saying, I'm going to give you a shot. But how does that feel different, being the one saying, I'm going to give you a shot? What is that like in the culture you have there?
That's a great question. I think because the company is so much bigger now and much more complex. We have complex resorts with 13 restaurants and 2 golf courses. You can't just throw everybody in the pool. And so we started coming up with programs and mechanisms to help you get from A to B. And one of the more recent ones, and I'm shocked at what this has turned into. During COVID, we closed the whole company down. And then we found out people want to go to resorts. So we start opening our resorts, but we don't have anybody that wants to work at them. So we came up with this title. It was called Omnicare Intern. And what we did is we went to colleges and said, if you work for us for the summer, we're going to house you. We're going to have a happy hour every Friday. It's not alcohol. We're going to give you a training program. Execs are going to train you. You have to work in any job. And if you stay with us till Labor Day, which is when everybody typically leaves, we promise you when you graduate, you will go into our management training program, the same one I went into. And the first summer, I think we had maybe 80. It was a huge success. I think I have 260 last summer. Like, it has grown and grown and grown. But we had training around it. We had structure around it. We traced what the people were doing. We had kind of fences on what they could and couldn't. Like, they can't come and wash dishes for 3 months. Like, you've got to move them around. But we just kept coming up with mechanisms to help people take a step. And now when we are looking at promoting people, when we look at their succession planning profile, we look to say, were they an Omnicare intern? Did they do our leader in development program? Did they do our executive in development program? And all of those programs have currency. They were like, maybe they're not quite ready, but they did these programs, so let's give them a shot. So there is some structure and science around it now. It's not like in the Wild West when go run a company with 9,000 employees, even though you're 27 years old.
But how do you get started on that? Because, like, as a leader, I myself, and I know others too, that you want to be that person who takes a shot on someone and then has joy, have this incredible career as a result of that. But it's not going to feel that great if they don't succeed. And if you wait until you're 100% sure, there's a very high likelihood someone else is going to have spotted them first and you're going to lose them. What's the secret to knowing when to take a shot on someone?
Because we're the size we are now, we have to rely on the people in the field to tell us. So we have a layer of operations that's like a regional vice president of operations, and they do hotel visits. And our incentive programs have a component for how much internal talent are you developing and how much retention do you have. So you can't just send bozos everywhere. You've got to take people that have a chance to succeed, and then we monitor them. We have regular check-ins with them. And I'd like to say we put our arms around them. We have a program right now. It's called Ascend, and it's for like middle managers. And every executive in the company, there's about 180 of us, we have to have an Ascend mentee. We are a mentor for one person. And it's an 8-month program, and every month there's an activity. And every executive is like super proud of their Ascend mentee. And it's funny because just today, the first mentee I ever had was an HR coordinator at the Grove Park Inn in Asheville, North Carolina. And the first call I did with her, she was very shy and very timid. And about halfway through, I said, "Do you like HR?" She said, no, I really don't. Okay.
That was a very honest thing to tell the CHRO.
Yes, it was very brave of her telling me that, and she's in my division. So I said, we're going to throw away the script for this month. I said, I'm going to give you homework. I want you to meet with the director of finance and meet with the director of rooms. And, I gave her meet with the director of CS. I want you to go meet with these people and come back to me and tell me, is there any job there that appeals to you? So she came back the next month. She said, I think I like finance. I said, okay, we're going to put you in a finance leader and development program at the Grove Park Inn. That was 2 years ago. And just today, she got promoted to the assistant controller in Hilton Head. So here's someone that we probably would have lost had we not started career conversations to really find out what they were doing. And I have a personal interest in her. I'm talking to her regularly. I'm making sure she's happy. And the whole thing is, we just did this for the first time last year. We now have a succession management profile on everybody in the company that's a manager. So we know, when will you be ready for promotion? What's the best next step for you? Will you relocate? If yes, where? We've captured all of that. So when we do our weekly talent meetings, and I've got a director of finance open in Houston, we can pull up a report that says, these 3 people are ready. 2 of them said they'll go to Houston. And now we have a direction to go talk to people and say, you said this, are you game? So it's got more, we're trying to create more and more structure around it so that if I get hit by a car or the SVP of ops who's also passionate about this gets hit by a car. There's a system that will keep this going.
Yeah. Joy, what's amazing about your story about your mentee is that I think a lot of people who are conscientious, good managers, having a mentee sitting there who seems like they're not grooving on their current role would be, like if they're going to be honest with the person, a natural thing to say would be like, you're not really coming across like you're that excited. Like my advice to you is find something about your job to get excited about and grind a little harder and make it work. But that was not you. You went with a very direct approach and say, do you even like working for me?
Yeah.
Like what gives you the like instinct to do that? Because I don't think that's intuitive to people.
Anyone that's worked for me will tell you I'm very direct. Some people can handle it. Some people cannot handle it. And I go out of my way. I feel the hospitality business is a relationship business. So I go out of my way to get to know you and observe you and look at you in meetings and see if you're talking and see if you're happy. And I just take a lot of time to do that. And I feel like people are giving you clues all the time. Are you listening to them? And a lot of people are moving too fast, I think, to listen. And I think empathy is a really big part of success and leadership, and not enough people exercise that muscle.
I think there's something so profound about that because I don't think it's intuitive to people that sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off and saying the very direct thing is the most empathetic thing, because tiptoeing around it allows the other person to tiptoe around it, and you might never really get to the thing. And you're going to be in your career for not just years, but decades, and never getting to the thing that, like, you don't seem like you like it is a pretty profound, important thing to get to. And so sometimes just getting to that is the kind, empathetic thing.
Yeah. And I spoke at our leadership conference last year. And one of the things I said was coddling people is not compassionate. Clarity is compassionate. I see so many people suffer where their manager doesn't coach them or point them in a different direction or not let them go off a cliff. And then by the time the situation has gotten to a fever pitch, the manager's like, I want this person out of here. And they haven't given the relationship a chance to be better. And I think a lot of leaders are really bad at confrontation, and they don't like to give what they think is bad news. Where I think it's kinder to say, you're miscast. Can we find another place to put you?
Yeah, because the unstated part of that is that it's not, you're not saying there is no casting role for you. It's that this isn't the right role for you. Because, a person who's struggling on some level, they know they're struggling. It feels like a struggle. So it's much better to just rip the Band-Aid off sometimes.
I think too, like to me, I look for personal qualities. And I'm 68 years old. I never thought I'd be working this long and loving it, but I am. But I'm like, I owe it to Omni to be developing a successor. And 3 years ago, I went to the owners and I said, I'm not ready to go. But I think I need someone working beside me because I've been here a long time. This is a big job. And they're like, who do you have in mind in HR? And I said that the person's not in HR. The person's a general manager. Because this person has a backbone, she has a BS detector, she knows operations, which is our business. She doesn't know HR. I can teach that. But I wasn't looking for like the HR person. I was looking for a leader. And she's been with me now. We're going on 2 years. And, we've got some frontiers mastered and other things are new. But when I announced her, a lot of my senior HR leaders were like, nobody can figure out what you're doing. Like, what are you doing? Like, they were all looking at me like, this is not, like, we're not on board. And after a month, they came back to me. They were like, we get it.
Amazing. So one of the interesting, so you talked about a general manager who you promoted. One of the interesting things about having experienced your company at the hotel level is that there are some hotels where you walk in and you're like, I don't know where in the world I am, but I'm in this type of hotel. Omni's not like that. You walk in and you have a sense of place. This is not like the other hotels. And that's really interesting, I think, from a talent standpoint, because you're not, maybe, you tell me, not looking for a carbon copy person in a hotel that's slightly different based on the locale. How do you think about that?
That's a really great observation. Different cities require different things. I would say a city like Nashville, where we're one of the biggest hotels in the city, we're a leader in the city, we've brought a lot of business there, we were there first. We need someone that's kind of like the mayor of Nashville. In Pontoke, we're building a hotel in Mexico right now. We are saying we want this nicer than any Omni. We want to compete with the Auberge and the One and Only and all that. We need a ultra luxury GM who's run resorts. We don't have many of those because that's not what we are. So what we try to do is look at the market, try to determine where do we want to come into that market, and what does the person's background bring to that market. Tempe's a great example. Brenda, she came from Ritz-Carlton, and that's not a Ritz-Carlton, but it's a great service experience. She doesn't have to be the mayor of Tempe. She doesn't have to be on every board. But in New Orleans, you do. In La Costa, you've got to kind of represent the California vibe and the California lifestyle. And so it's hard to transplant certain people to certain roles because of what the job is. And I think of Mount Washington, which is in New Hampshire, ski resort, golf, year-round resort. The general manager that we put there, he grew up in North Conway. He loves New England. He wants to be there. Same with the homestead. You have to want to live in Hot Springs, Virginia, in the mountains. Like you can't take someone from New York City and say, hey, your next promotion is the middle of nowhere. And so we do look for people that have a passion for the area, maybe have a tie to the area, or have worked in hotels that reflect what we're trying to do. A historic hotel GM needs to have a passion for that kind of a hotel because it's much harder to run than a Tempe, which is a brand new box where everything works perfectly.
Yeah, fascinating. And how do you then give, in this world where you fit the GM to the market and to what you're trying to accomplish there and where your hotel is positioned there, how then do you give autonomy to that GM to hire their team versus say, this is the Omni way?
That's such a good question. And that's where we bring in the power of one. So we have certain brand standards. You have to have 24-hour room service. You have to have our select guest program where if you're a frequent guest, you're going to get coffee and another beverage delivered to your door. You have to have robes in the room. And there's just certain brand standards that are non-negotiable. Beyond that, we tell the GMs, you're empowered as long as it doesn't go too far off the rails. Now, there are some GMs that raise their hand and say, well, what am I empowered on and how much money can I spend and to what? We're like, that's not empowerment. If we're telling you that, you have to tell us what's going to create a memorable experience in your hotel. Do you have the budget? Do you need a capital investment? If you do, what's the ROI? But you're the CEO of your business. And we have found that certain brands that are very SOP centric, they don't do well at Omni because we try to cultivate an entrepreneurial spirit to the point where you have like our GM in Orlando, who's now one of our VPs, he came to us and said, there's thousands of families coming to Orlando to soccer tournaments. We need to build soccer fields. He did the ROI. We built it. They're a home run. Or in Grove Park, we can do more weddings if we build a pavilion. Barton Creek, same thing. We have a design to renovate the hotel. They're like, give us a wedding pavilion. You cannot have a wedding at Barton Creek. They start at $250,000 in that pavilion. So GMs that see a vision and see what could be do very well for us. GMs that need a lot of hand-holding do not.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay. And so you've talked about this power of one concept that's obviously an organizing principle. What is it and how does it help you communicate the Omni way to a big and growing team?
We actually rolled this out in 1991, and this is your empowerment program, and there's 19 different service points. Smile and make eye contact, be an ambassador for the hotel. There were a whole bunch of different ones. And we rolled out a training program, and every week an executive would call the employee cafeteria, and whoever answered the phone, we asked you what the power of one of the week was, and you knew it, you got $100. So when you walked through an Omni hotel, they were posted everywhere. During COVID, we lay everybody off. We hire 19,000 new people who don't know what the power of one is. And the president at the time wanted to modify it to be the power of all. So we're all in on service. We all have to create memorable experiences. Well, it just didn't stick. And people that were legacy employees were like, we missed the power of one. So we reintroduced it, and it's 3 things. Do what's thoughtful and caring, put the guests first, you see it, you own it. And we've said to people, this is all you need to remember. Do this well. And we're going to publicize it when you do it well. And I have 2 crazy stories about it, but it's so good. We had a guest who stayed at Amelia Island Resort, and we have a nature center for kids. And this little girl, Abby, fell in love with this macaw that we have at the nature center. And she cried and cried when she left the resort. So the manager of the nature center, without asking anybody, he teaches the bird to say Abby. He takes a video of the bird saying Abby and sends her a stuffed animal macaw with the video. And the parents are like, we're never going anywhere else for the rest of our life. And nobody told him to do that. The other one, it was in Nashville. And a guest was in our hotel working at his desk. And I can't remember what company he worked for, but he tweeted out, Omni's chairs are the most uncomfortable chairs I've ever sat in my life. Who picked this, blah, 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 blah. So somebody in marketing sees that. We have a different chair brought up to his room. Fine. He checks out. He goes home. Our hotel manager buys a Herman Miller Aeron chair and sends it to his house. I mean, and we're celebrating that all over the company. Did it cost money? Yes, but it's such a great story about this.
Yeah.
And the more we hear the stories and the more we share the stories, the more people out in the hotels are trying to outdo each other. And it's so amazing to see. And so I'm really glad we brought this back. We rolled it out at a leadership conference, and we're like, we're going back to the power of one, but we're doing the power of one for a younger generation, a simpler message that resonates. And we put a lot of training behind it, and we put a lot of reinforcement behind it. And we try to use it anytime an executive's speaking. If you listen to Kurt Alexander, our president, any of his podcasts, he's talking about the power of one.
What's so cool about a framework like that or a philosophy like that is that if you're a passionate employee, of course you want to be one of those people in one of those stories you just told. And what this does is it provides you the roadmap and the framework for how to be one of those stories. And so rather than saying, wow, how am I going to get noticed? You've communicated, this is how you get noticed. And that for somebody who really cares, that's really great. You're doing them a great service by telling them how.
Yeah. And, when we rolled it out in the 90s, managers were like, this is horrible. A bride is going to have a wedding and she didn't like room service and the desk clerk's going to comp the whole wedding. I'm like, that is not going to happen. And it never happened. And we also have a rule. You can't discipline anybody for the power of one. If you don't like the decision they made, you can say, hey, next time, maybe you do this or that. But nobody gets a hand slap if you don't like the decision they made. And honestly, I don't really hear about anyone doing stuff like that. It's all celebrated.
So you've talked about not just the power of one, but also what a relationship business you're in. We also live in a world where there's technology changing underneath our feet every single day. And so how do you take this sort of enduring principles like the power of one, like bringing people out of the corners and giving them a shot and things like that, and marry that with this fast changing world? Where do you employ technology and where do you say this is how we do it and we're going to keep doing it this way?
I would say in general, our technology philosophy is we want to make things easier for the guest experience, but we don't want to take the personal touch out of the guest experience. So I have been at hotels where I get my key on my phone and I go to my room and I get in and I never see a person. That won't happen at an Omni. You're going to check in. There's always going to be a doorman. Somebody's going to offer to carry your bag. You're going to see a person. The personal touch is very important to us. So we're not going to be the kiosk, you can check in online, but you're still going to go to the desk and get a key and see somebody. I think behind the scenes, how the technology works for your reservation and letting you book spa and dinner reservations and maybe a special experience before you get to the hotel. Or how do we get information into the hands of our managers? So we have a texting system that would say, hey, we see you're checking in at 5:00 tonight. Is there anything special you'd like in your room? You could text us back and we'll have it there. But we're not taking the person out of the equation. And I think also on the associate side, we're investing in technology I can change my schedule with you on my phone. I can get daily pay from you on my phone. I can see how much PTO I have left on my phone. But we had hired a very famous consulting firm. This is 2 years before COVID. And they're like, you could run this company without any HR. And I'm like, we're not. We're not. We're a people business. Our people want to come. I said, now I'm willing to do things like have a shared service center for recruiting or benefits or payroll. But if the employees want to talk to someone, there's a person that's sitting in an office, not virtual. They're sitting there. There are people in the hotel and HR that are invested in the training and development, and they're waving the flag for culture, and they're calling you up if you had an accident. I don't want to get rid of that because that's part of, what we call the Omni family is we're putting our arms around you for your career, and we're putting our arms around you when things are bad.
Joy, we always end these episodes with a rapid fire question. So I'd love to ask you one. And the scenario is you're getting in the elevator at headquarters, or you're getting a cup of coffee and the president of the company walks up to you and says, hey, Joy, I've always been meaning to ask you this. You are the people person. You interview people all the time. I'm interviewing people all the time. What's your one best tip to become a better interviewer?
It's going to sound crazy, but I do this every time. Do I want to have dinner with this person? And if the answer is no, I move on. I would also say if they don't smile in the first 4 minutes, they're not a hospitality person. But the dinner question is my number one question. My other, I have an owner rule. And my owner, I've never told him this. I've worked for him for 28 years. I never told him this until a month ago. I said, when I'm interviewing an executive, I say, if there was a dinner and this person was sitting next to you at dinner, would I be proud to have this person sitting next to you? And if the answer is no, I don't progress that person either. So they're kind of it's not the standard, your accomplishments, what would you wish you do different? It's my gut of, do I want to spend time with you and invest in you personally? And would I be proud to say, here's another shining example of an Omni leader?
You're in a relationship and hospitality business. It's not a behind the scenes, never talk to anyone, as you just talked about business. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Joy, it is so clear why you're a talent all-star. Thanks so much for taking the time with us today.
Thank you. It was fun.
That's Joy Rothschild, Chief Human Resources Officer at Omni Hotels and Resorts. We'll put her LinkedIn profile in the notes below. And as a reminder, we're an audio podcast also. So if you want to listen on the go, just search Talent All-Stars in your favorite podcast app and tap follow. If you have feedback for us or ideas for future episodes, send us an email to talentallstars@ziprecruiter.com. I'm Dave Travers. Thanks for listening to Talent All-Stars, and we'll see you right back here next week.